May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. It's a wonderful thing to see so many of you here on this hot holiday weekend. I hope you had a wonderful 4th of July and were able to celebrate it in whatever way you saw best. Our 4th of July was blissfully and blessedly normal. Normal. We got together for a family cookout, you know, potato salads and hot dogs and hamburgers and broccoli salad and all those things with family. And then we were able to walk down to some neighborhood fireworks. That was wonderful. You know, all of my boys, it was great to have them all there and gathered. One chasing and running around with his friends, others hanging out with the lifeguards trying to keep the pool safe, another one on an errand to find the friend who'd gotten separated and get back in time for fireworks. It was so good to have us all together. And then we were able to really gather together and see those explosions, those fireworks. I don't know about you, but it leaves me a little unsettled sometimes, all that loud noise and booming. To celebrate in the name of the Simpsons, to celebrate the birth of our country by blowing up a little corner of it, right? Right? But I always love to get together for that time because it reminds me of our country's communal hopes, the ones that are realized and those that are not yet realized, to be a true place of freedom, liberty, and justice for all, and how we're participating in this big experiment to make that hope true day in and day out. So that's why I love the fireworks and what 4th of July reminds me of. And yet, we gather here this morning, don't we? Also with a community of hope. We bring communal hopes here, and they move beyond liberty and justice for all into walking in faith. We come together as Christians to talk about and struggle with what it means to walk in faith and participate in this incredible economy of God's saving love. That's what we talk about week in and week out. The giving and receiving and sharing of the good news that is that God's love is available for each and every one of us and is experienced through each and every one of us. So you can see that economy of God's love at work in today's scriptures. Perhaps Luke is a little familiar to you. It's the sending of the 72. Jesus comes and he's going before 72 others, and he pairs them up and sends them off to every town and place where he himself had intended to go. So here we hear there's a plan for those places out in the hinterlands that Jesus was planning to go but hadn't quite made it to yet. And there, Jesus sends them in pairs. And he says, look, this isn't tough. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. So I'm going to send you out. You're going to feel like lambs among wolves. But remember, folks, they're hearing this from the Good Shepherd himself. So he'll be with them, like lambs in the midst of wolves. And he says, this is easy. You don't have to take anything. Don't take a purse. Don't take your sandals. Don't greet anyone. Just go. And when you get there, send out my peace. And if the peace comes back, then accept that hospitality. Share love, share the good news, share the story with them. But if you send out that peace and it doesn't come back to you, simple as that. Like the dust of your sandals, stomp them off and move on. And that is an example for us of what it feels like in the giving and saving, the giving and receiving of God's love, of sharing the good news. So there they go, and we get barely a paragraph break before they all come back. Don't you think it took a little bit of time for that? Don't you bet they had stories to tell? But after barely a paragraph break, they come back and they return with absolute joy, saying, it's just like you said. The danger didn't touch us. It was powerful and rejoicing, and we experienced our presence as a healing power to the people, and they are amazed. I wonder where you see yourself in this story, in today's scripture, in the giving and receiving of God's love. It may not surprise you that I have usually seen myself in the story as one of those 72. I mean, after all, I am up here, I'm the one talking today, right? So I'm up here preaching. So I usually see myself as one of those laborers sent out into the harvest in the story. But the last 4th of July, last year, I found myself living in one of those hinterland towns where Jesus had intended to go, but maybe wasn't exactly evident yet. You see, last summer, I spent the summer living in a Ronald McDonald house. Do you know what a Ronald McDonald house is? Well, I'll tell you. It's a fantastic charity supported by McDonald's, the fast food chain. And it's a place that houses parents and families and kids of those who are patients in a children's hospital. And the place that I was living was a building that was especially for children who were well enough to leave the hospital, but not well enough to go home. So our neighbors were folks who were waiting on bone marrow transplants, or waiting on an organ donor, or like us, had received a round of therapies and then were waiting to get well enough to receive the next round. A really amazing place to be, but could also be a kind of tough, bleak place to live on some days. So that's where I was on the 4th of July, when I thought, you know what, as mom, I felt like it's time to bring a little celebration. We've got to get a little bit of this spice. Let's see where we can get some fireworks. Can we get something up in here to get a taste of this holiday? And we had been told that there was a rooftop where you could watch the fireworks, right? So I went to check it out. It involved an elevator, to another elevator, to a passageway, to a long line of people, to another elevator, to a hallway packed with people because it had just started to rain, and none of them could go outside yet. And I began to realize that that wasn't going to work for us, that if our household, if our little group was too immunocompromised to receive our friends and family, we were probably too immunocompromised to stand in a crowded hallway with a lot of other people waiting to see fireworks. So I was a little downtrodden and thought, I've got to take this news back to my room and see what we're going to do, how are we going to scare up some 4th of July fun. And on my way back, I walked to this lobby, and right there in front of me was a whole group of teenagers. These teenagers were not with their friends running around playing tag or lifeguarding or looking for their friends or going for fireworks on the 4th of July. No, it was a whole group of teenagers, and in front of them was an entire display of red, white, and blue ice cream. What? Strawberries and blueberries and whipped cream and cherries and every flavor of ice cream and sprinkles and all of those things. And those folks were spending their 4th of July handing out ice cream. And I thought, wow, well, there it is. That's our 4th of July celebration. So I got these giant bowls of ice cream. And to be honest, when I got back up to the room, the teenager probably, when he saw that, completely forgot about fireworks. I mean, it's ice cream. Come on, who doesn't love that? And we spent the rest of that July having a little bit too much ice cream. But in that moment, I found myself in that hinterland town feeling like I was seen and cared for by some teenagers with bowls of ice cream. Because you see, it's not really about the ice cream. It's about the dozens of other stories that I can't really share with you, about the ways in which, whenever I needed it, God's laborer showed up and showed me that we weren't lost or forgotten, that God was there through a listening ear, a small gesture, a large good news. Over and over again, all I had to do was say, peace, send out the peace, and be able to see and receive what was in front of me. God's laborers kept finding us. So, there's good news in this story for you, no matter where you find yourself. This year, on this reading, next time you read this story, if you find yourself in a hinterland town, look for a couple of the 72. They're coming. God is sending them. All you have to do is receive them with peace. You'll know what it is. And they will bring the kind of love that will heal your heart. But you may also be called to be one of those 72 on this reading. And if you're one of those 72, there's good news for you too. First of all, God doesn't want you to do this thing alone. You're supposed to have a buddy, right? You're supposed to go out in pairs. So who is it that's been sent with you along the journey? Who are those buddies that are to accompany you in bearing God's love to the world? The other good news is you don't need to take much else. You know, you don't need to worry about your bag or your sandals. God's going to provide it. It's pretty simple, this economy of God's love. You don't have to sell everything and go be a missionary. You don't have to get up and drive off to the hill country of West Texas, even though every one of us in our hearts wants to be there this morning, meeting the need there. You don't have to do some great big far-flung incredible act, because the truth is there's plenty of suffering right here in our hinterlands, in our midst. And we are called to meet it. So I wonder, there's way more than 72 of us here today. If you were to pair up on your way out this week and find a place to go, where are you called to go? Who are you calling to go with you? And God is going to make this easy and possible. It's as simple as a bowl of ice cream, y'all. So what is stopping you? Amen.